All right, good morning and welcome to Intro to Statistics. So this week we start our daily exercises. The first one, I'm having you guys construct a bar chart. So I'm going to take you through a little example first, just show you what I want you to do, and then we'll go through and I'll let you do the other one. The other one I have for you is a little bit longer. It's not too bad, but I want you to get like a kind of like a daily practice for doing the kinds of things you're supposed to be doing because I've noticed that at the end of when it comes to be test time, people are like, oh my God, I don't remember how to do any of this. So we're trying to practice beforehand. So let me just show you what you're supposed to do with this. So at this point, we've got a phlebotomist draws a random sample of 50 patients. This is nice because they tell us what the N is before I've started. Your problem doesn't do that. I just give you values here. So you can go ahead. You are allowed to do this in Excel. You can use a calculator. Whatever tool you want to feel comfortable with is fine. I'm going to recommend please use the calculator because that's usually what you're going to have access to for your exams. Now, I've got a calculator emulator, which you're not going to be allowed to use on exams because of the respondus. But if you have a phone app, I'm going to be hard pressed to figure out what's going on with that. So you're allowed to use that. There might be a calculator that's with the Connect so that you don't have to like use a different calculator. But if you want to check out a calculator from the library that we have, you can go right ahead and do that. But a TI-82 or 80, TI-80, this is 83, 84 is the preferred calculator. So the first thing I'm going to do is just going to double check, like what is the total that we have here? We have 22 plus 19 plus 5 plus 4. Okay, and I think let's go ahead and double check. That's not right. Let's go back. So we're going to say plus, no, we want to say plus, there we go, plus 5 plus 4. So just kind of double checking 22, 19, 5, and 4. I'm used to actually working my calculator with my fingers, not with the mouse button. So that's why I'm going a little bit slow here. And indeed, sitting here, we have 50. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab my little pad of paper that I have. Not really paper, it's a contraption that lets me actually use this thing to write on the board here. But the next thing we're going to do is we want to go ahead and we're going to express this as a fraction. So we're just going to write it as a fraction here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to say we have 22 over 50 here. We have 19 over 50. Okay, we have 5 over 50 and we have 4 over 50. Okay, that's figuring out a relative frequency. Okay, we're just taking the count that we have for each category, dividing it by the total. That's all you're trying to do with this. Okay, and then sometimes well, not sometimes, a lot of times students ask me like, how do you want the answer done? How do you want the answer presented to you? And I really say, I'm going to leave that up to you. So if you want to present it as a decimal, that's fine. Most people are a lot more comfortable with percentages rather than just decimals. But I'm going to say that if you're going to be giving this number to an engineer, you probably want to leave it as a proportion, a number between 0 and 1. If you're going to write this for anybody else who's maybe not so good with numbers, you want to express it as a percentile, and your problem is express it as a percentile to two decimal places. We'll go ahead and do that. So right now, we're just going to take our 22 divided by 50, and that's going to be our first percentile here. So we can go ahead and say, okay, this is 44%. So we got 40.44 or 44%. I'm sorry, we should write that in the correct little box here, 44%. Let's get rid of this. Okay, so that's all we did for the first one. The next one, we have 19 over 50. Okay, and it's nice that it's 50 because it divides out nice and evenly, but I said for you guys, go ahead and convert to two decimal places. So we're going to say this is 0.38. We're going to change that to for a percentage. We want 38%. Okay, next thing up, we're going to have 5 divided by 50, which I shouldn't need a calculator for, but we're going to get 10% for that. Again, move the decimal place over twice, we get 10%. Okay, and finally, 4 out of 50. Okay, we have that, we have 8%. So 0.08, we move the decimal place two places. So 0.08, we move the decimal two places, that's 8%. Okay, so we have that. So we've constructed a relative frequency chart as our fractions. We've done that, so check that off. We've constructed a relative frequency chart as a percentage. We've done that, check that off. And now we have to make a relative frequency bar chart. So what we're going to do here, and this is always a nice thing to have to do, is we're just going to go ahead and say what's going to happen here. Now, let's see, we have to scale this thing. I'm looking at, we have 10, 38, and 44. So let's go ahead. We're going to need a couple of things. Now, in Connect, it does it for you. So we're going to go ahead and say blood type. Now, in statistics, every one of your problems is a word problem. Don't you feel special? So in word problems, when you have to draw a chart, we draw a graph for a word problem, you always label your axes, okay? So we're going to say relative frequency here as my y-axis. When you have algebra classes, it's almost always X and Y, and you've got like a parabola or some kind of a line or whatever you're graphing. A lot of people don't remember to put the X and the Y there. And I'll tell you a little story. When I took an engineering class, we have to draw like the little figure of what's going on with the problem, and they're always X and Y, okay? And I got my first test back and like, you got a 50%. Like, wait, what? And I asked the teacher, I'm like, why did I get a 50%? And he said, you see the little X and the little Y here? Yeah, you didn't write those down. I had no idea what you were doing. Like, really? So I dropped that class because I was like, I'm not going to deal with this. However, for my algebra classes, I do take off points if you don't label your axes. But if it's assumed that it's X and Y, I don't take off the points for that. For statistics, because they're all word problems, you have to label your axes. Now, let me tell you something about this. A lot of you are going to, your freshman year, when you have to go ahead and do your sophomore year, when you have to take junior year and senior year for the people who are going on, if you don't label your axes, your teachers will notice. They may not say explicitly, I notice you don't do this, but on some level, they will notice. If you do label your axes, they will notice. And if you label your axes and get in the habit of doing it, you will be looked at as a student who pays a lot of attention to detail. You must be an A student. Teaching, grading is not completely an objective process. It's a little subjective. And if teachers think you're an A student, they're going to round up your score to look like an A student. So tell them you're an A student, label your axes, and make sure that you're going ahead and do that. If I ever go ahead and do this, I will usually put a little reminder in here. Don't forget to label your axes. So with frequency charts, with bar charts rather, and we've got nominal data types, A, B, and O, okay? There isn't any kind of implied order. I am not the one to tell you that O is better than A, is better than B, is better than AB. Pick an order that makes sense to you. I'm going to pick the order that they were presented in because who am I to argue? Like, why not? Just give it to them this way, which is fine. Okay, actually, this is kind of nice because they were given to us in descending form, so we can go ahead and talk about that. So what we're going to do is I have to go up to about 44%. So when I look at my chart over here, we could do something like 10, 20, 30, 40, and we could just say the percentage. So we could just say 10, 20, 30, 40 like that. And we could just say, okay, this is my O. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to say, okay, we have 44%. Sometimes people like to write this either on top or in the middle of their bar. That's fine. We can go through, we can say, okay, this is going to be A. So we have A. With bar charts, there's generally space between the values. Now, nobody's really going to quiz you on that, but if you're trying to write a bar chart that's proper, there's a distance between the A and the O. They don't touch. Okay, and we're going up to 38%, so it's almost 40. So I'm trying to get this to almost 40 over here. So we have something like that, and we'll just say this is going to be 38%, and I'll just keep writing it in the middle because I did that for the first one. We don't need to write the percentage so much, trying to save a little bit of room. Next one down is B, so we have our 10%. We'll say that's B, and then finally we have 8%, which is AB. Okay, I think this is pretty standard for the population blood types. So we'll go ahead and fill this out and we'll say 10 and we'll say 8%, okay, knowing that these are all percentages. Okay, you could also write them on top, just be consistent with what you're doing, and it's fine. This is a specific kind of bar chart because they go in descending order. Okay, this is actually called a Pareto chart. And Pareto was a guy who worked for, and I'm not saying this to praise him or anything like that. I don't know anything about Pareto's politics, but he was Mussolini's, like one of his people, like worked for the Department of Labor. He's the guy who made the trains run on time. So his idea was to look at quality control and say, okay, we need to write down the most frequent mistakes or the most frequent thing first, and then go down from there. So if you look at it from a quality control sort of perspective, we're going to try to solve the things that happen in the first column, then the things that happen in the second column, and then we're going to move on down the line. That way, we're taking care of the things that are causing the most problems first. But this descending sort of idea for a bar chart still carries his name. So it's a Pareto chart. Again, I don't think he was a fascist, but I don't really know his politics. But that's who it's named for. And these are very nice to be able to deal with. So they will usually tell you, like, hey, arrange this in a Pareto chart. I didn't do that for your assignment. You can put them in any order that you please. Again, there's no value to say A is better than B is better than like you could choose whichever order you wanted for this, and nobody can yell at you to say that that's bad and wrong. Okay, that's all I want you to do for your first daily exercise with the data that you have. So again, the whole point is these aren't supposed to take a long time. What you're going to do at the end, you're going to take a picture, click, and go ahead and send it to me as a PDF, and that will be your assignment. If you wanted to do this in Excel, and I don't have it up right now, so I can't show us that, be my guest, do it in Excel, just choose bar chart and go ahead and submit that as a as your submission. Like just, you know, go ahead and save your Excel as a PDF, include that as your submission, and go ahead and send that for your assignments. You don't have to do this by hand. You could do it in Excel. I will say that Excel takes a little bit of time to learn how to do charts, but since you have one of these problems every other day, you have some time to figure that out. Okay. So if you want to do it by handwriting, that's great. I'm always a fan of statistics you can do on a clipboard. I always like that. Or if you want to do it in Excel, that's fine too, but it's up to you. Okay. But that's what you're supposed to do for your first assignment. I think you're going to be okay with that. So I look forward to seeing all of your submissions, and good luck, everybody. Please reach out to me for questions and we'll stop there. Okay. So thank you very much, and everybody have a good day.